and welcome to Football League World TV. My name is Ned Holmes and this is The Debate Show. Today I'm joined by my Football League World colleague, Marcus Ali, to discuss whether Birmingham City are genuine playoff contenders. How are you doing this afternoon, Marcus?
Yeah, very well. Thank you, Ned. Well remembered. Nice to be checking in on a sort of surprise package at this stage of the season. So, yeah, very happy to be on today's show.
Yeah, as you say, I'm sure Birmingham City fans will be happy that we're even considering the prospect of Birmingham City being a playoff contender. But if you are a Birmingham fan, please do let us know your thoughts in the comments. And as always, before we get stuck in, just a reminder, please do like and share this video and subscribe to Football League World TV on YouTube if you haven't already. Well, Marcus, John Eustace appointed in the summer as Lee Bowyer's replacement after he was sacked. Fairly quick turnaround. Blues finished 20th last season. What did you make of, first of all, I guess, the decision to move on from Lee Bowyer and then the decision to go with Eustace as his replacement?
Well, initially I thought it was quite harsh on Lee Bowyer, to be honest. I thought under the circumstances he performed quite well to particularly keep them up in the lockdown season and then sort of keep them well away from any sort of real relegation fears last season. That said, I did think that it was also an exciting appointment to bring in John Eustace. Had some really glowing references from managers across the Championship and seemed to come quite close to getting jobs maybe a little bit more favourable than even Birmingham in the second tier. Obviously, there was a slight element of risk attached because it was his first senior management gig in the EFL. But we've seen people make a success of that in a not too distant past. So, yeah, I thought it looked like a good appointment. I think Bowyer could probably leave with his head held high, keeping the Blues in the second tier under those circumstances. Although it did feel like his relationship with the supporter base was deteriorating towards the back end of last season anyway. So yeah, a good move to freshen it up. At least it was definitely proven to be. And yeah, although he was something of a rookie at the level, I think his previous experience sort of stood him in good stead to take on the challenge.
Yeah, as you say, I think I'd agree with you that, Bowyer, the job he did can count himself a little bit unlucky that he didn't get another chance to push on, but it's obviously proven a bit of a coup, really. Obviously, I think it was Swansea City that Eustace reportedly turned down and then was strongly linked with that Watford job as well. The job he's done at Birmingham, I mean, it took them a little while to get going there. Just one win and 4 losses in those first 6 games, but that tight win against Preston North End appears to be, perhaps if not a turning point, then sort of certainly a springboard for some some really positive form. What did you make of that sort of slow start? A teething period, and now do you feel like we're really getting to see the real Birmingham City?
Yeah, I think honing in on that Preston match, it was maybe more of a much needed win considering the negative feelings heading into the season surrounding Birmingham, more than looking at it as a sort of turning point in one match in particular. I think some of the business that they did at the back end of the transfer window, it was always going to take a little bit of time. And once we've seen a real gelling and some relationships starting to blossom on the pitch, that has more been the trigger to turn their form around and see them climbing up the table than that match in isolation. But it was certainly a huge result, a great one for belief, and it seemed to be have a sort of uniting effect on the squad and Eustace and the fan base. Some really good scenes at Deepdale after picking up that 3 points. So yeah, I think it was always going to take a little bit of time given the nature of some of their transfer business. A handful of players that they brought in didn't have a huge amount of experience in the Championship. But I think it's at that stage of the season, it's important not to read too much into how your opening handful of fixtures go, because we're sort of tough to get a handle on the strength of the opposition at that stage as well. So yeah, it did seem to sort of catapult them forward. But no, yeah, we are definitely seeing the real Birmingham and Eustace's methods come through now.
Yeah, certainly kicked on from there at 10th now after 20 games, 7 wins, 7 draws, 6 losses. So it's 28 points so far. Just 3 points off the top 6 in what is, as we've discussed many times, a very congested Championship this season. I mean, Marcus, a lot of people were tipping the Blues to be one of the sort of relegation battlers this season. I don't know where you had them ahead of the campaign and whether they've exceeded your expectations so far.
I was definitely one of them, I must confess. Yeah, even being quite encouraged by the Eustace appointment, I still saw them as relegation fodder, to be honest, looking at that squad. That maybe changed a tiny bit considering their signings towards the back end of the transfer window. Obviously, Tahith Chong probably being the standout, but I think Christian Bielik coming in from Derby County on loan was a really clever piece of business. Obviously, missed the start of the season through injury, but that Bielik has shown over the last few seasons that he's probably a promotion pushing midfielder at this level. So it's been no surprise that their upturn in form has somewhat coincided with him returning to fitness. Yeah, I expected them to be towards the bottom end. Really, I don't see the squad depth as anywhere near as strong as the majority of clubs in the Championship, quite reliant on youth players to sort of pad out their squad. And of course, the way that they finished last season, the second half of last term, sort of slipping away after a positive opening few months under Bowyer, sort of I could have seen some more of the same happening. And yeah, just the trajectory that they've been on as a club over the last few years, I found it tough to see them producing anything close to what they have really. I did see another season of anxiety looking over their shoulders for Birmingham fans.
Yeah, certainly, as you say, exceeded those expectations already, and made all the more impressive, really, given the off-field instability. Lots of takeover talk still ongoing. Paul Richardson and Maxi Lopez's bid, the one that's seemingly closest. It's worth really highlighting, I guess, the job that John Eustace and his players appear to have done to bring a bit of stability back and some good feeling back for the fans amid that, those off-field issues that we've seen, I guess, at other clubs at other times, certainly derail performances on the pitch.
Absolutely, yeah, a really unique test for Eustace in his first job in the EFL. I think it definitely makes it harder. I think he's definitely going to be a stronger character for that. Yeah, it's not ideal at all. I think even the situation with St Andrews, and I'm not completely clued up on the subject, but there's one of the stands that's not up to scratch. So they can't even fill the whole stadium at the moment, and yeah, a lot of different things were causing a real negative feeling amongst the supporter base going into this season. They were probably enthused on the main part to see the back of Lee Bowyer, but with all that going on, all the uncertainty, it's a real credit to Eustace the way that he's been able to galvanise them. I don't know how much of a say he has in recruitment, but I think bringing in a really exciting set of younger players has really helped to sort of take the stress away from that and sort of focus on the short term. They're bringing in some high profile players who are focusing on performing well this season to progress their careers, and I think that has kind of been able to rub off on the rest of the squad and yeah, hence lift the mood through some positive results. So yeah, I think Eustace definitely deserves extra credit for the performances on the pitch given the off-pitch situation. Hopefully that can change by January or get sorted as soon as it possibly can, because it's not ideal and it will hold them back in the long term. But no, yeah, it's been really impressive the way he's been able to cope with that and have them performing the way that they are.
Yeah, certainly, given how impressive that the young coach has been already, it is exciting that the prospect of him sort of seeing what he could achieve with Birmingham, were then sort of more stability. You touched upon transfer business, and we're going to move on to that next. Let's have a look then at the Blues summer. As you said, plenty of exciting business done late in the window. You touched on Tahith Chong signed, of course, permanently from Manchester United. John Ruddy on a free transfer from Wolves. And then there were loan deals for Hannibal Mejbri, Emmanuel Longello, Christian Bielik and Placheta from Norwich, and Dion Sanderson from Wolves. They all joined on loan. What do you make of the summer business? Marcus, you touched upon Tahith Chong there. Any other standouts that really caught your eye?
Well, yeah, there were. I just touched on how I was still sort of concerned about them in terms of battling relegation, even after completing the summer transfer window. That sort of came because of Chong's up and down fitness last season. It felt like a player you couldn't really rely on as much. And also John Ruddy potentially being a player, excuse me, due to his lack of game time over the last few years at Wolves, it could be a little bit rusty dropping down to Championship level. But I think the loanees to focus on as well have been so impressive. I didn't know too much about Austin Trusty and Emmanuel Longello coming in from West Ham United, having mainly played in Premier League 2 in the last couple of seasons. But the way that they've hit the ground running has been sensational, really a real credit to who's in charge of the scouting with the Blues. So yeah, I wasn't too optimistic after their summer recruitment. Obviously, it's not too healthy to be that reliant on loan players. And I think the squad is still looking quite thin. If they were to suffer an injury crisis, I don't think talk of a potential playoff bid could go on for very much longer. But no, I think Ruddy has turned out to be a real inspired signing, and it just demonstrates how there is room to still be creative in the transfer market. You don't have to only go for players that could bring potential resale value to your club. That's going to be minimal in the case of John Ruddy, but it's turned out to be a real key player. So I think Chong took the headlines for the right reasons, given the profile of the player. But some of those lesser known loan signings like Trusty and Longello, and of course Ruddy coming in on a permanent basis, have turned out to probably be the best ones.
Yeah, let's talk about John Ruddy then. I think, as you say, there was a certain amount of concern given that he'd been playing second fiddle at Wolves for sort of so long, about and the fact that it's fairly late, into the twilight of his career now, that you couldn't say for certain. There wasn't a guarantee that Birmingham were getting the John Ruddy we've seen in the Championship in the past. I mean, they seem to have got exactly that. I mean, for me, perhaps quietly, the signing of the summer for Birmingham, and in terms of value, you could argue across the Championship, some eye-catching performances between the sticks, but also just help to bring calm at the back. And as you say, with those low knees dotted around and in the defence as well, and the likes of Trusty, his experience, his calmness at the back, being so impressive. Just touch upon more, Marcus, what you've made of Ruddy and why you think he's been such a good signing for the Blues.
Yeah, he's been epic, really, in between the sticks. It's definitely hard to argue with him being the best signing that they've made so far this season. And yeah, with those players, it is such a huge help to have a calming influence. I'm sure he's got a loud voice on the training ground, in the dressing room, and can add to that group of senior players already at the club. I think with a position that they may be expected to be competing in the table, there's John Eustace would probably admit that it's going a little bit better than he expected. Having a goalkeeper pick up points for you over the course of the season, we know how fine the margins are in the Championship, can have a huge sway on whether a club stays in the division or not, and yeah, have a huge say on picking up more points to change their league position. So yeah, Ruddy seems like a risk at the time. We were definitely wrong to doubt him. Obviously, he's proven himself in the Premier League over the years. So yeah, I think it's credit to Eustace once again for being able to motivate him to produce such sky-high performance levels this season. And yeah, let alone Birmingham's best sign, he's probably been one of the best shot stoppers in the division as a whole as well.
Yeah, hugely impressive from Ruddy at the back then. And I just want to focus as well on the form of Scott Hogan. 9 goals for him already. A massive boost, Marcus, to have a player in that's really, harsh to say perhaps, that's really rediscovered his form in front of goal. And a boost to have a regular goal scorer, given no player managed more than the 10 he managed in the whole of last season.
Yeah, definitely. It is an ageing attacking contingent at Birmingham. I think that the contributions of Troy Deeney and Lucas Jutkiewicz have decreased significantly in the last year or so. So for Hogan to step up has been huge for them. He's such an intelligent striker, really efficient with his movement, a real handful for defensive, even when he's not in the best goal scoring form himself. The hat-trick at West Bromwich Albion and a 3-2 win was outstanding. One of the better individual performances that I think we've seen in the Championship this season. I think he's benefited from the more mobile players sort of bombing on from midfield in this Birmingham side. We've seen him link up with Juninho Bakuna, quite a lot of really exciting attacking midfielder. They seem to be on the same wavelength at times there. And now with Troy Deeney coming back into form, a player that occupies defences so well, Hogan's been able to exploit the additional space he's probably having compared to last season when they didn't pose as much of an attacking threat. So yeah, I think he would have been confident in his own ability. I think he's sort of hinted towards feeling that he was a little bit held back by Lee Bowyer and the way that he was playing last season. So yeah, to see him back to his best has been great to see, and a huge player in sort of lightening the load on some of the other less experienced Birmingham players in the squad.
Yeah, well, we've touched upon Ruddy, on Hogan there, and Chong. I just wondered if there were any other players you wanted to sort of throw the spotlight on for a bit of praise.
Yeah, I think Bakuna deserves a lot of credit. Even when Birmingham struggled in the second half of last season, he was something of a bright spark after coming back to the Championship from Rangers. I also think he's benefited enormously from the late window signings of Medjbury and Chong, sort of taking their reliance on Bakuna for creativity off him a little bit. Eustace has been able to rotate him a little bit and keep him fresh, which has been real to his personal benefit. And the side, I think Dion Sanderson has been excellent, has been an impressive talent when fit in the last few seasons in various loan spells from Wolves, but hasn't been able to quite sustain his fitness over a long period of time. Definitely a player capable of putting in consistent performances in the Championship. Maybe hasn't got as much credit as Orson Trusty due to a lack of goals, but as a centre-back, I don't think that's too much of a concern. And Maxime Collan in the back line as well, a really versatile player, someone that's helped used to sort of chop and change. I think he's been rotating in a really healthy way, despite not having too much scope to do that. I think Collan's versatility on the right side of the defence has been important in doing that. He's been a figure of consistency through some really tough patches at Birmingham over the years, and he still remains just as crucial in the back line, really comfortable on the ball, which helps as well. So yeah, probably quite a common unsung hero over the last few seasons at Birmingham. Collan still remains a key player.
Yeah, certainly a few impressive contributors this season. Well, we touched upon sort of Birmingham, their summer, John Eustace, and the transfer business that they've got done. But next, we're going to shift our focus a little bit wider to the Championship as a whole. Well, Marcus, we're beginning to sound quite like a broken record on Football League World TV, and the amount we've talked about how wide open the Championship is this season. But it's really hard to ignore. I mean, as we said, Birmingham, after a fairly slow start to the season, picked up a bit of pace, now up into 10th, just 3 points off the top six. You've probably got the likes of Sheffield United, Burnley that remain as the front runners for those top two, and perhaps Blackburn in there if they can secure a bit more consistency. Did you see Blues among sort of the pack chasing the top six? Did you see them sort of in a third tier just below? Whereabouts do you place them in what is quite a wide open Championship at the moment?
I'd probably put them a little bit more towards mid-table than the top six. I think a top half finish is, given the way they're playing, a really realistic aim for the rest of the season. I think that would represent a really successful start for John Eustace at the club. I just worry about their squad depth, to be honest. Of course, that could change in January, but while there's still some off-pitch developments to come in that regard, I do think that they'll be at a disadvantage compared to the clubs around them. They are in the chasing pack as things stand, and they are until they aren't, if you see what I mean. But yeah, I do think that they'll just come up short. I can see potentially a top four breaking away in the Championship and leaving sort of fifth and sixth to compete for it. I think Watford, Burnley, Sheffield United and Norwich could be too strong and sort of head and shoulders above the rest at some stage. So then you look to the likes of Swansea, if Blackburn can stay there, whether QPR can turn their form around as to who's going to be around. But also you've got to look at sides lower down the table, the likes of Coventry on a storming run at the moment, Middlesbrough and West Brom slowly mobilising. I know they're lower down in the league table, but when you look at how many points they're off a club like Birmingham, it's not really that much. It's an achievable, a recoverable sort of gap between them in the space of a few weeks. So yeah, I worry about Birmingham's second string a little bit too much to quite put them in the conversation of playoff contenders and in that chasing pack that I can see sustaining for the remainder of the season. But there's still plenty of reasons to be positive. And if they can stay relatively injury-free, then there's a chance that they could exceed my expectations yet again.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly some exciting signs in the early days of the John Eustace reign, even if this season might not be the one in which they surge back into that top 6. Well, that is everything from myself and Marcus and the rest of us on Football League World TV today. And that just leaves me to say thanks to Marcus and thanks everyone for watching.